The post-millennial and New York Times best-selling author of Unmasked: Inside Antifa's Radical Plan to Destroy Democracy. Andy, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it. So talk to us about what you have been seeing and how all of this has been impacting small business owners.
Thanks for having me on. I'm actually joining you from London. I've been analyzing the footage for over a week now. There's been 8 days of violence in Los Angeles, and the coalition is different this year from the riots 5 years ago. There are some of the same actors, a lot of Antifa, open border militants, and far-left activists, but instead of BLM, there's this presence of groups like La Raza and other Mexican nationalist groups. And though the violence had died down a little bit, it picked up again for the No Kings protests yesterday, in which 7 LAPD officers were injured. And we saw scenes of violence outside the federal building in downtown that had been besieged day after day. Unfortunately, there are U.S. Marines there to protect it because, at least amongst some of the rioters, they would like to besiege it and burn it down. And there were days of looting, mass looting, and some business owners have taken to not just boarding up their businesses as they had to do 5 years ago, but also paint symbols of Mexico and write things like Mexican owned, or pleading with the looters and rioters not to target them, as if this is now some needed twisted Passover ritual that needs to be done in Democrat jurisdictions.
Yeah, Andy, and we can't forget, I mean, how you personally were viciously attacked by Antifa back in 2019 and at a protest rally at a George Floyd anniversary event in 2021. And you mentioned No Kings protests. What more can you tell us about those protests, who's behind them, and possibly who's funding them?
So the No Kings protest has nearly 200 so-called partners, and it's listed online. These are major Democrat-aligned organizations. They include unions, PACs, nonprofit groups, and they have access to these huge listservs, a lot of money. I mean, collectively, their revenue, according to their public reporting, is nearly over $2 billion. So these are very motivated activists, and that's why there were tens of thousands of people who mobilized across the U.S. yesterday. But of course, within that element, Antifa International put out a call for their members to embed themselves, and that's exactly what they did in some places, like in Seattle and Portland, which were particularly violent yesterday. In Seattle, Antifa tried to besiege a DHS building. They created a blockade and a hostage situation before they were shut down by federal officers. And then at night, they started fires in the streets in downtown and are continuing to attack a federal building in downtown. In Portland, after the No Kings protests, Antifa encouraged their co-protesters to mobilize to the ICE building, in which they smashed it up and tried to start fires. So this is, and then, you know, we don't know the circumstances of the shooting in Salt Lake City, but there was a shooting that happened there with one person with serious injuries. So these protests so-called protests come in the context of a lot of violence. And that is sort of characteristic of left-wing demonstrations, which we are told are peaceful.
Yeah. We're told that for sure. Well, Andy, thank you so much for joining us today from London. We appreciate your insights.
My pleasure.